What would you do if your own neighbors turned against you? What if a simple request for privacy led to the discovery of hidden corruption, betrayal, and a battle for justice? When Marcus Johnson's HOA demanded access to his private gate, it set off a chain of events that would uncover a dark secret. Who can he trust, and how far will he go to fight back? Will his quiet life be destroyed, or can he expose the truth? Watch to find out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Marcus Johnson had always dreamed of escaping the chaos of city life, and at 35, he had finally achieved it. He had purchased a beautiful lakefront property in Riverside Grove, a peaceful neighborhood in Carmichael, California. It was the perfect haven, a retreat away from the noise of the world, where he could focus on his work as a graphic designer and enjoy the tranquility of nature. For months, Marcus lived in peace. His days were spent sipping coffee on the porch, taking in the views of the serene lake and enjoying the solitude. His property, large and secluded, offered him the privacy he craved. The calm of his surroundings was a welcome change from the busy city life he had left behind. It was everything he had dreamed of. However, Marcus soon found that peace came with its own set of challenges. The lake, once a place of quiet beauty, had become a dumping ground. Each weekend he discovered trash scattered along the shoreline: beer cans, plastic bottles, and fast food wrappers. It seemed like people in the neighborhood treated his property like a public park, with no regard for the mess they left behind. Frustrated by the constant littering and feeling that his space was being disrespected, Marcus decided to take action. He installed a sturdy gate at the entrance to the path that led to the lake. The gate wasn't just a physical barrier, it was a statement. It marked his boundary, his land, his rules. What Marcus didn't expect was the reaction from the Riverside Grove Homeowners Association, HOA. One afternoon, while working from home, he heard a knock at the door. When he opened it, he found Sarah Williams, the president of the HOA, standing on his porch. Her arms were crossed and she looked impatient, her pearls gleaming in the sunlight. "We need to talk," Sarah said without preamble. Marcus greeted her politely. "Hello, Sarah. What brings you here today?" "The HOA held an emergency meeting last night about your gate," she said, her tone sharp. "You've blocked the path to the lake that the community has been using for decades." Marcus was confused. "That path is on my property. I checked the deed when I bought the house. It's private." Sarah didn't seem to care. "The board has voted unanimously. You need to give us a key to your gate so the community can access the lake. If you don't, there will be consequences." Marcus felt a surge of frustration. He wasn't about to let someone take away his hard-earned privacy. "I'm sorry, but I'm not giving anyone access. This is my property." Without another word, he handed Sarah his lawyer's business card and closed the door, his resolve firm. After his confrontation with Sarah Williams, Marcus thought the situation would settle, but it quickly became clear that the HOA wasn't going to back down. In the following weeks, things escalated quickly as Marcus started receiving a series of violation notices from the HOA for trivial issues that had never been a concern before. First came a notice about his mailbox. It was painted in a color that had never been flagged by the HOA, but now they claimed it violated neighborhood aesthetic standards. Next was a notice about the height of his fence, which was well within the permissible limits according to the HOA guidelines when he moved in. Then came another violation for his garden border. He had carefully chosen a design that matched the style of the neighborhood, yet somehow it was now deemed improper. These notices felt less like legitimate concerns and more like retaliation. Each new violation felt personal, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the HOA was simply looking for reasons to harass him. It wasn't just about enforcing rules anymore. It was about pushing him into submission. The blatant retaliation was frustrating, But Marcus kept calm and documented everything, photographing his property and keeping detailed records of every violation. He also contacted his lawyer, Mark Simmons, who advised him to stay alert and continue collecting evidence. The situation took a darker turn one evening when Marcus received an alert from his security system. His phone buzzed with a notification showing several figures standing near his back gate. Marcus immediately checked the live feed, his heart sinking when he recognized Sarah Williams, Robert Davis, the HOA treasurer, and Michael Thompson, the facilities manager. Robert was holding what looked like a pair of bolt cutters. They were trying to cut through his gate lock. Panic gripped Marcus. His first instinct was to call the police. He dialed 911, his voice shaking with urgency. "There are trespassers attempting to break my lock. They are from the HOA. Please send someone immediately." As he spoke, he recorded the footage from his security cameras. He knew this was the evidence he would need if things escalated further. The images on his phone showed the 3 HOA members standing by his gate, attempting to cut the lock. It was a clear violation of his property rights, and Marcus felt a surge of anger. This was no longer a dispute over a gate. It was an attempt to break into his private space. Within minutes, the police arrived. Officer James Carter, a calm and experienced officer, stepped out of his patrol car. Marcus met him at the door and quickly showed him the footage. "Look at this," Marcus said, his voice strained. "They're trying to break my lock. That's Sarah Williams, Robert Davis, and Michael Thompson from the HOA." Officer Carter studied the video carefully, then nodded. "We need to take a look at the gate," he said, his voice steady. They walked around to the back of the property where the gate stood, now showing signs of damage. The lock had deep scratch marks, clearly the result of an attempted break-in. The officer shone his flashlight over the area and spotted fresh footprints in the soft dirt nearby. "This is attempted break-in, and it's criminal," Officer Carter said, his voice firm. "I'll file a report. This is no longer just a civil dispute. It's a criminal matter." As they examined the damage, headlights swept across the driveway. A silver SUV pulled up and Sarah, Robert, and Michael stepped out. They looked tense, but Sarah tried to put on a smile. "Officer, thank goodness you're here," she said sweetly, her voice dripping with insincerity. "We were just checking on community property. This homeowner has illegally blocked off access to a path everyone uses to get to the lake." Officer Carter turned to face Sarah. "Ma'am, according to county records, this is private property. You were caught on camera attempting to damage a lock on private property. That's trespassing and vandalism." Sarah's face flushed with anger. "This is an HOA matter, not a police matter," she shot back, trying to assert control of the situation. Officer Carter remained calm, not fazed by her words. "Bylaws don't override state law, ma'am. I suggest you consult with your HOA attorney before taking any further action that could be considered criminal trespassing or vandalism." Sarah, clearly fuming, shot Marcus a hateful glance and stormed off. Robert and Michael quickly followed her, their expressions dark. Once they were gone, Officer Carter turned back to Marcus. "Keep the cameras running, and if they come back, call us immediately," he said. "We have enough evidence now to move forward with criminal charges if needed." Marcus stood still, his mind racing. What had started as a simple dispute over a gate had quickly turned into something much larger, criminal actions, and the HOA's attempt to cross a serious line. This wasn't just about the gate anymore. This was about standing up for his rights and protecting his property from those who thought they could push him around. The HOA had made a huge mistake, and Marcus was ready to fight back. The tension between Marcus and the Riverside Grove HOA was reaching new heights. What began as a simple dispute over his private gate had turned into a battle he hadn't expected. Every day, the HOA found new ways to harass him. The violations started small: a mailbox color, the height of his fence, even his garden border. But as the days went by, it became clear that the HOA wasn't interested in enforcing rules. They were trying to break him. Each violation notice seemed more petty and unreasonable than the last. Marcus felt as though they were making up reasons to bother him. There was the sudden complaint about his driveway being too wide, despite it being perfectly in line with the community's standards. Then, an accusation that his landscaping around the front door was unsightly, despite it being neat and well-maintained. Every time a new violation appeared, Marcus grew angrier and more frustrated. He knew this wasn't just about a gate anymore. It was about the HOA using its power to punish him for standing his ground. But the stress wasn't just coming from the notices. The HOA had started a smear campaign, spreading rumors around the neighborhood. Neighbors he barely knew were suddenly messaging him, asking if it was true that he was blocking lake access or disrupting the community. The HOA's influence was seeping into every part of his life, making him feel more isolated. In the midst of all this, Marcus found an unexpected ally in Martha, an elderly neighbor who lived a few doors down. Martha had been quietly observing the HOA's actions, and she had something important to share. One afternoon, Marcus went over to her house after she called him with a warning. "I have something that could help you," Martha said, her voice low and urgent. "You need to see this." Marcus followed her inside, where she showed him video footage from her bird-watching camera. The footage, though grainy, clearly showed Sarah Williams, Robert Davis, and Michael Thompson, the HOA members, standing at the back gate, using bolt cutters to break into his property. The footage confirmed what Marcus had suspected all along. The HOA was not only harassing him but also engaging in criminal behavior. "I've been watching them," Martha said. "I didn't know what they were doing, but now I know. I couldn't let this go on without telling you." Marcus felt a mix of relief and anger. He finally had the evidence he needed to take further action. "Thank you, Martha," he said, his voice steady. "This could change everything." But as the investigation deepened, Marcus uncovered something even more disturbing. While reviewing the neighborhood's financial records one night, he came across documents that revealed a far more serious crime. The HOA had been collecting significant fees from homeowners for the maintenance of the lake path, a path that had supposedly been maintained for years. But as Marcus dug deeper into the records, he realized the truth. No maintenance work had been done in years. The HOA had been funneling the collected fees into fake companies with no legitimate business operations. Marcus was stunned. The HOA wasn't just making his life difficult, they were running a money laundering operation. He immediately contacted his lawyer, Mark Simmons, and sent over the documents. Mark responded quickly, telling him that they had enough evidence to take the case to the authorities. "Marcus, this is more than just a civil dispute. This is criminal," Mark said when they spoke on the phone. "We can expose this." The realization hit Marcus hard. This was no longer just about a gate. The HOA had been embezzling funds and exploiting the community for years. But now, with the video evidence from Martha and the financial records he had uncovered, Marcus knew he had the tools to fight back. He wasn't going to let the HOA continue their illegal activities. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt empowered. He had the truth on his side, and now he had to expose the HOA for what they really were: corrupt, manipulative, and willing to do whatever it took to maintain control. The fight was far from over, but Marcus was ready to take the next step. He had the evidence. He had the law, and he wasn't backing down. The tension in Riverside Grove reached a boiling point during the HOA's emergency meeting. Marcus and his lawyer, Mark Simmons, were ready to reveal the truth that had been hidden for far too long. The community, divided by the HOA's smear campaign, filled the room with murmurs and whispers. Marcus knew this was the moment to put everything on the table. As Sarah Williams, the HOA president, stood at the podium, preparing to speak, Marcus stood up. The room fell silent. "This meeting is about to take a different turn," Marcus said, his voice firm and steady. "I have evidence that proves the HOA has been engaging in illegal activities for years. It's time you all know the truth." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah's face paled and she gripped the microphone as though trying to steady herself. The tension in the room was thick. Mark Simmons stepped forward, carrying a folder filled with documents. "The HOA has been collecting money from homeowners under the guise of maintaining the lake path. But the truth is, no maintenance has been done in years. The collected funds were funneled into shell companies, set up to launder money for personal gain by several board members, including Sarah Williams and Robert Davis." The room erupted in whispers. Marcus watched as Sarah's composure cracked. She was clearly shaken, but her voice was defiant. "This is all a lie," she stammered. "This has nothing to do with the HOA's operations." Mark continued, handing out copies of the financial documents. The papers showed evidence of fraudulent transactions, payments to non-existent companies and transfers to personal accounts. The HOA had taken money from residents under false pretenses. There was no denying it now. Marcus then presented the final piece of evidence, video footage captured by his neighbor, Martha. The footage clearly showed Sarah, Robert, and Michael Thompson using bolt cutters to break into Marcus's property. The footage was irrefutable, and the entire room went silent. "You can't deny it," Marcus said, holding up the phone. "This is you caught on camera. What do you have to say for yourselves now?" Sarah's face turned bright red, but she couldn't refute the evidence. The crowd began to murmur, with some neighbors standing up, angry and demanding answers. The HOA's control over the community was slipping away, and they were powerless to stop it. Despite Sarah's attempts to salvage the situation, it was clear. The truth had been exposed. The community had been manipulated, and now they had the evidence to fight back. The tide had turned, and the HOA's power was shattered. The legal battle that had begun with a simple dispute over a gate had now escalated into a full-blown war for justice. Armed with undeniable evidence, Marcus and his lawyer, Mark Simmons, continued to press their case in court. The HOA members, led by Sarah Williams, Robert Davis, and Michael Thompson, were charged with embezzlement, financial fraud, and abuse of power. The court proceedings moved swiftly, and the evidence Marcus had gathered, along with the testimony from neighbors like Martha, sealed the fate of the corrupt HOA. The once powerful board members were arrested and faced criminal prosecution. Their attempts to deny the charges fell flat, as the truth had already been laid bare. Sarah, Robert, and Michael were held accountable for their actions, and the community's trust in the HOA was irrevocably broken. They had been exposed for what they were, a group of individuals who had exploited their positions of power for personal gain, all at the expense of the residents they were supposed to serve. But the victory wasn't just Marcus's. It was the entire Riverside Grove community's. The residents, who had been forced to live under the thumb of a corrupt board, now had the chance to rebuild their neighborhood. The court appointed a new HOA board, one that was transparent, fair, and committed to serving the community's best interests. The new members were chosen for their integrity and dedication to making Riverside Grove a better place for everyone. The changes were immediate. The community, which had once been divided by fear and mistrust, began to heal. The new HOA made efforts to listen to the residents' concerns and work collaboratively to improve the neighborhood. There was no more arbitrary enforcement of rules or exploitation of funds. Instead, the board was focused on what truly mattered, ensuring the safety, well-being, and prosperity of everyone in Riverside Grove. As Marcus watched the transformation unfold, he felt a deep sense of pride. Not only had he stood up for his rights, but he had also stood up for the rights of his neighbors. He had fought for transparency and fairness in a system that had long been corrupt. Marcus knew that his fight had made a difference, not just for him, but for the entire community. Riverside Grove was no longer a place where fear and exploitation thrived. It had become a neighborhood where justice prevailed, and people could live in peace, knowing that they had the power to stand up against corruption. Marcus had been the catalyst for that change, and as he looked out at the neighborhood he had helped transform, he knew he had done the right thing. The journey Marcus embarked on wasn't just about fighting for his property or standing up to the HOA. It was about justice, perseverance, and the belief that one person can make a difference. Marcus's story highlights the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Throughout the ordeal, he faced immense pressure from the HOA, threats of financial ruin, and an entire community that had been manipulated against him. Despite all of this, Marcus never backed down. His unwavering commitment to doing what was right for himself and his neighbors became the foundation of his success. Marcus understood that true justice requires more than just the courage to stand up. It requires the will to keep fighting, no matter how difficult the journey may become. Even when the HOA attempted to intimidate him with false accusations and retaliation, Marcus stayed focused on his goal, exposing the corruption and ensuring that the community had a voice. His perseverance was the key to breaking the cycle of fear and oppression that had plagued Riverside Grove for years. Marcus's refusal to back down in the face of threats is a testament to the strength of his character and the belief that justice will always prevail when one refuses to compromise their values. But Marcus's victory also carries an important lesson about transparency and fairness, particularly in community organizations. Throughout his fight, Marcus discovered how easily unchecked power could breed corruption. The HOA, which was supposed to serve and protect the interests of the community, had become a vehicle for personal gain. Without transparency and proper oversight, the board members exploited their position, taking money from the residents and using it for their own benefit. This story serves as a reminder that, in any organization, especially one that governs a community, there must be mechanisms in place to hold people accountable. The story shows how the absence of transparency creates an environment where corruption can thrive. The HOA's disregard for fairness and the law ultimately led to its downfall, and it was only when the community began to question the board's actions that the truth emerged. Marcus's battle for justice not only exposed the wrongdoing but also brought about significant change. It was a lesson for the entire community. When transparency and fairness are upheld, corruption has no place to hide. Ultimately, Marcus's story teaches us that standing up for what's right and demanding transparency can change not just an individual's life, but an entire community's future. His perseverance brought justice, and his fight for fairness paved the way for a better, more just neighborhood.